It's not often you'll find a wooden headphone as beautifully made as this. These are the Statex headphones, and they're remarkably light, very comfortable, and I think beautiful. They're also an electrostatic headphone. That makes them an interesting alternative to some of the less attractive electrostatic options out there, or the less comfortable and less nicely made headphones like the HiFiMan Mini Shangri-Las. At €1,900, the Statex are also priced right around the obvious level of competition for them, so it's not even as though you're paying a premium to get such beautiful design. Of course, sound quality is very important too, and we will get to that in just a moment. Before we get there though, let's quickly cover off some basic specs for those who want them. The Statex headphones use a 99mm driver, and that driver system has a capacitance of 80 picofarads without the cable attached, and they require a bias voltage of 500 volts. If you're new to electrostatic headphones, let me provide you with a quick explanation of what all of that just meant. Unlike planar magnetic headphones, which use a magnet to push and pull the driver as the musical signal passes through wires on the diaphragm, electrostatic headphones create a static, high voltage charge on the diaphragm itself, and then as the musical signal is passed through electrodes on either side of the diaphragm, they cause that statically charged diaphragm to be pushed and pulled in response to the musical signal. By working this way and not having to have wires running through the diaphragm, the electrostatic headphones have extremely lightweight and highly responsive driver mechanisms. That responsiveness is part of what makes electrostatic special, but it also could be part of one of their drawbacks, which we'll get to shortly. When it comes to talking about the specific sound of the Statex headphones, things get a little bit complex because it depends on the energizer that they're plugged into. Every electrostatic headphone needs a special energizer unit, a bit like a special headphone amplifier, to provide that high voltage bias that gives the static charge to the diaphragm. The Statex headphones use the standard electrostatic plug that many of us have seen before, as well as a standard 500 volt bias voltage. And that means you can use them with any energizer that you like if it's designed for the Pro 500 volt system, but Statex also make an energizer of their own. It's a compact portable unit that you see here, and you can buy this little energizer separately for €450, or you can buy it bundled with the headphones and pay a total of €2,300, which equates to a total of a €50 discount for the bundle together. Of course, whether you should buy the energizer from Statex, that's a whole different question. Kicking off with the Statex headphones using their own energizer, the sound is immediately clean and energetic. The strong point from the Statex headphones with their own energizer was definitely the sense of resolution, clarity, and articulation they were delivering. That's not uncommon for electrostatic systems, but what I was hearing from the Statex system was better than I expected. However, as is often the case with electrostatic headphones, the bass presence was a little bit less than what I would like. And this could be the downside of eStats, electrostatic headphones, having such lightweight diaphragms. They don't ever quite seem to have the sense of authority or presence down low that you can get from dynamic driver headphones or planar magnetic driver headphones. However, the sound was still very enjoyable, even if it didn't have quite as much bass as I personally like. I tried a few different pads thanks to the wonderfully simple fitting system on the Statex headphones. They're just magnetically attached with a metal ring inside the pads. But no matter how many pads I tried, none of them were a clear and obvious upgrade over the stock pads. My favourites of the pads I tried would have been the Deconi Audio Odyssey vegan pads, because their deep, angled design and the material being a softer, slightly more sound absorbent material meant that they brought the treble back a little bit and allowed the bass to come forward a little bit perceptually. But I found myself missing the immediacy of the stock pads on the Statex, so I went back to the stock pads. And on that note, if you want to play with Deconi pads on any of your headphones, if you buy yourself a pair of Statex headphones and you want to tweak the sound a little bit on those, Deconi have a special offer for you. This video is sponsored by Deconi Audio, makers of headphone pads, ear tips, a fantastic modular cable system, and even things like headphone carry cases. Visit DeconiAudio.com and use the code PassionForSound10 for 10% off any purchases of all their range of products. And when we're speaking about swapping things, some people might also want to swap the cable on the Statex headphones. They use the standard mini XLR connectors, which makes it very easy to change it over, and the cable provided can be quite noisy because it's got a hard nylon sheath over it. You can hear it here. If you're sitting still, it's really not a problem, but any movement that will cause the cable to touch and rub against your clothing is going to put a fair bit of noise up through the cable and into your headphones. That's a mechanical noise, not an electronic noise. In other words, it's not going through the driver, it's just being transferred mechanically through the outer sheath of the cable. It's vibrating up into the body of the headphone itself, and then you're hearing it from there. It's worth noting at this point that Statex is a relatively new brand. So don't be surprised if they update their cable in the future, and if you're looking at this video and wanting to buy a pair of Statex headphones, it might be that they've already changed the sheathing on their cables. Who knows? All I know is that to this point, I was impressed by the Statex headphones, but not yet blown away. That is to say, I was blown away by their design, their build quality and their comfort, because these are an absolutely gorgeous headphone. They have real wood in the headband, real wood around the cups and the yokes here, and then they've got this wonderful smooth adjustment mechanism that's so easy but also holds its position. Everything about the design, comfort and fit is wonderful. I just found them a tiny little bit fatiguing with the Statex Energizer, and so I decided to do some further testing. I used the FiiO M23 digital audio player for this test, and I ran its 2 line outs, with the single-ended line out going to Statex's own Energizer, and the balanced line out going to the HiFiMan mini Shangri-La Energizer. Immediately, using the mini Shangri-La Energizer lifted my enjoyment of the Statex headphones. With the Statex Energizer, I kept wanting to turn the volume up to get more bass feel, but doing so also increased the treble and left it being a bit fatiguing. The quality of everything was great, there was just a bit too much treble. On a track like You Got to Funkifies, the texture and timbre of the saxophones, trumpets, cymbals and drums were all fantastic, but it was just missing a little bit of the body that it should have had down low to my ears. Swapping over to the HiFiMan Energizer delivered a sound that was a little bit more refined up top, and that helped to allow a slightly higher volume level without any fatigue, which brought the sense of bass presence and feel up a little bit. As I listened more and more to that setup, the Statex headphones really impressed me with their imaging and staging. There's a saxophone solo later on in You Got to Funkifies, and the sax was just hovering out in space in front of me with the Statex headphones and the HiFiMan Energizer. The sound was nimble, crisp and clean, but it was all refined and smooth at the same time. Yes, a little bit more bass weight still would have been preferable for me, but I couldn't help but enjoy the Statex headphones regardless. And then there was one more test to be taken here, comparing the Statex headphones with the HiFiMan mini Shangri-La headphones. I used the HiFiMan Energizer for this because I like it better than the Statex one, and it also allowed me to have both headphones connected at the same time. The HiFiMan mini Shangri-La headphones are a little bit smoother, a little bit more relaxed sounding than the Statex headphones, but the Statex headphones throw a wider soundstage and separate individual sounds better. For those seeking a smoother sounding electrostatic headphone setup, I do think the HiFiMans are probably the better choice, but I feel like the Statex are more impressive and exciting for the technicalities, the detail retrieval and the like. In most circumstances, I lean towards the richer, more laid-back sound, but I feel differently whenever it comes to E-Stats. And possibly it comes down to the fact that if you're going for the speed and responsiveness that really only electrostatics can provide, then why not get the best they can possibly deliver? And it's the Statex headphones here that deliver that really speedy, lifelike and exciting sound that only electrostatics can deliver. They have such wonderful clarity, articulation and imaging for a headphone at this price. And as I said before, if you do want to change the sound a little bit, you can very quickly and easily change the pads thanks to that wonderful magnetic and metal ring system. I mentioned before using the Deconi Audio Audiophile vegan pads. Using those actually made the Statex headphones just a little bit smoother again beyond the mini Shangri-Las. So there is the ability to tame and adjust the sound of the Statex to suit your ears and the rest of your system. Of course, the other things you could do if you like a smoother sound is to go with a tube energizer like one of the ones from Stax, or to use a tube preamp before your energizer. For example, even the simple process of switching the FiiO M23 into the DSD mode smoothed off the sound a little bit and further improved my enjoyment of the Statex. Which is not to say that they were unenjoyable in the previous setup, but I did find that just adding a little touch of smoothness to the sound of the source chain allowed me to enjoy the Statex more and more. And so I think the Statex headphones are an absolutely brilliant choice if you're looking around about the $2,000 mark for an electrostatic headphone. As I said, don't buy them if you're looking for an electrostatic headphone with a lot of bass, because these aren't it, but I can't stress how lovely these look and feel on the head and in the hand, as well as how incredibly good they are with imaging, clarity, detail or resolution. And the bundled Energizer is a good Energizer if you're looking for portability, but I think if you're going to be mostly doing desktop listening, I would look at other Energizers for the Statex. I think you can get better sound with a full-sized mains-powered desktop Energizer. And so if that sounds good to you, check out the link in the description through to the Statex website, or if you want to consider more electrostatic headphone options before you make your decision, I've pinned another video here at the end, which is a review of a different but also fantastic electrostatic headphone. So watch that one next if you're still trying to make up your mind. In the meantime, I want to send a huge thanks to YouTube channel members, to channel Patreon members, and to those of you who leave super thanks on videos like this one. And until next time, happy listening, be kind to each other, and I'll see you here again soon on Passion for Sound.